All right, in this video, we are going to try to install Flutter development environment on a Windows PC. We will be using Android Studio because we want to make mobile applications using Flutter. Flutter can be used for creating other application type, for example, web applications or desktop application as well. But we will begin with running Flutter applications on mobile devices. So let's start. First thing we need to do is jump onto our browser and we will be downloading a few things. Let's start with downloading Flutter. A quick search will take you to the Flutter website, and here you will say get started. Click on the Windows because I'm installing on Windows and I want to develop for mobile devices. Once I click this, there are a couple of things we will need to do. For example, first thing we need to do is download this Git for Windows. I click on Git for Windows and click download. This should download a few megabytes worth of a Git file that I need to install on my system. Let's wait for the download to complete. Depending on the speed of the internet, all these downloads may take longer or shorter amount of time. Also depends on the speed of the server. Sometimes the Git server is slower and sometimes it's just fine. So our first download is complete. Let's install Git. This is just going to be a simple setup. So I'll go and run the Git setup. Say run. Say yes to the warning, and then the setup will start. Next. So I'll just take all the default settings for this, move on, and click next a number of times to install. Let's not launch Git, and I will not view the README. I'll click finish. Then I'll go back to the same website where I was. I will press back, and down here in the download and install section, I will click on the Flutter Windows zip file download. This is going to download Flutter SDK for me. This is going to be required for Flutter development in my Flutter development environment. This is going to be my second download. This is not going to be an installable. This is going to be just a zip file that I will be extracting onto one of my drives. Please note, let's not extract this in a folder where we do not have drives. Let's use a generic folder where there are no permission issues. So for example, I can go down to my computer, go to C drive, and I can make a new SRC folder, and in this SRC folder I will put my Flutter downloaded file. So let's wait for the download to complete in a couple of minutes. Again, my second download is now complete, and now I can go to the folder, take this zip file, and I will actually copy and paste it into my SRC folder that I created. So inside the SRC, I'll probably create a Flutter folder, and I will extract this zip file here. Extracting the zip file will create another folder which is called Flutter. So my actual Flutter SDK is in C, SRC, Flutter. That's going to be the final address of my Flutter SDK. There's no direct installation or setup required for this SDK, but we will have to connect this to the Android Studio in the next step. So let's allow it to complete the extraction. Inside the Flutter folder, you will see a number of files, and I want you to run Flutter console. When I run this, this is a batch file, and it's going to open a console like this. You can try a few commands here. For example, we can say flutter dash dash version, and this should actually go back, check the Flutter folder, and give you the Flutter version in a few moments. It takes a few seconds to respond back, so let's be a little more patient with that. If you have installed some SDKs on your system, you know in Windows you actually add SDKs to the path at times. So you see there's a version that has come back. 3.16.8 is the Flutter version, and 3.2.5 is the Dart version. You could also go for a small command called flutter doctor, and this doctor command is actually going to go and create a checklist for you. It's more of an installation checklist, which tools are already installed and which tools are yet to be installed. So here we go. You could see that the Flutter doctor has given me some information, and you could see the green part says the Flutter is installed and the Windows version is fine, but the Android toolchain is not there. Chrome is fine, but the Visual Studio or Android Studio is not there. So we will be actually adding those. But before that, let's add this Flutter SDK to the path. So we have extracted it into C, src, Flutter, and inside that we have this bin folder. I want this bin folder onto my system path. For that, I will just simply search for environment variables, and this is the window that shows up, is the system properties, and here's the button of environment variables. Depending on the version of Windows, it's going to be slightly different, but what you have to look for is this path variable. I can edit this path variable, and it has one entry here. I will simply copy this path, C src flutter bin, and I will add a new path here and paste it here. You could either type it C colon backslash src backslash flutter bin, and that's it. I click OK, 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 and we are good. I can close this console window as well right now. So my next step is complete, and I have the Flutter SDK placed in my src flutter folder. Next thing I'm going to do is install Android Studio, and for that I will have to go back to the website again. I will open a new window, and I will say Android Studio in the search. This takes me to the developer.android.com/studio, and on this website, I will start downloading my Android Studio. Whatever is the latest version will be available on the home page. I click on the download, scroll down. I have read and agreed the terms and conditions, and click download Android Studio. This will start another download. So this is the third download that we have started for the evening, and this is going to download around 1 GB of data. Please note this is going to be the setup of the IDE, of the integrated development environment, that will require a few more steps going forward. So let's wait for the download to complete again. All right, the download is now complete for Android Studio. This is not the last download, but this is, well, probably the last setup that we have downloaded right here. It's taking a few more moments. So now we start this Android Studio setup that we have just finished downloading. This is again going to be one simple setup, but the setup will continue even after the installation. So let's allow this setup to start. I can close the extra windows and minimize the browser. So this is my setup. I will click next. I will install Android virtual device, which is actually my emulator. Android virtual device is going to be a virtual Android phone on the screen that I will use to run the applications on. Click next, use the default location for saving Android Studio installation, and I click install. If you're more curious, you can show details to see how it is working on extracting information that it has downloaded using the setup. Awesome. The installation is complete, and I will click next and start Android Studio finish. This will start Android Studio for me. Once it starts, do not import settings. I don't have any settings on this new system. If you have previously installed Android Studio, it could be a useful thing to import the settings that you already had. I usually don't send diagnostic data as well. And this is your first window of this setting up Android Studio for you. So you can make Android Auto and Android TV and Android Wear and Android tablet and phone devices applications using Android Studio. I click next. I will use the standard installation. It is going to get some more information. For example, it will be downloading 345 MB worth of Android emulator, Android SDK. It is by default downloading Android version 34 SDK for us. I will just say yes, but this is a little tricky screen for the beginners. So you have to accept the agreement that is listed here, but there is a different agreement for Android SDK license. So you click on the license and accept, then you click on this Android SDK ARM DBT license, click accept, and you click on Intel Android Extra license and click accept, and then this finish button will appear. Click on the finish and it will start another download for us. Please note it is going to download Android SDK, which is not part of Android Studio. It's the software development kit. And then it will download the Android emulator, and it will download a few other tools. So let's wait for the download to complete. Again, this is going to be slightly large download, more than 1 GB. And so your emulator itself is going to be 1 GB, and the SDK. So we'll have to be a little more patient and wait for the download to complete. If you're a little more impatient, you could probably show the details to see what exactly it is trying to do. So you could see that it is downloading emulator Windows x64.zip file, and the status will continue to change with the process. As you can see, you have to be extra patient with the download. It downloads a few things and then installs them and then downloads a few things again. So yeah, so that's a little more wait and see situation depending on the speed of your internet and your system speed. But hopefully in a few minutes, we will be done with the downloads and installation. All right, you can see the download has completed, and uh, I am using a different system which does not have Intel virtualization enabled. That's why this error is coming. Most probably this error will not come for you. So let's click finish, and my Android Studio has finally started. This is the first screen that we have on Android Studio. I can create a new project right now. If I create a new project, it will create a new project for me in Java or Kotlin for the native development, but we are setting up environment for uh, Flutter development. So there are a few more steps to go. They're not going to take that long for sure. So what we need to do is look for the settings. Depending on the version of the Android Studio on this first screen, you will find the settings probably here or somewhere else. But this gear is not giving me the preferences or settings. In the latest version, probably they have put it into customize and all settings. When I click on all settings, it will give me this detailed settings window. I have appearance, behavior, editor, plugins, version control, languages, tools. So we have to go for the plugins section, and I will search for Flutter. There are several Flutter related plugins that show up. Select the one which only says Flutter and click install. Accept, and this will start installation. It will also suggest you to install the Dart plugin. Yes, that is required. So let's click on install for the Dart as well. Wait for a few seconds. The download is not very big. Once the download is completed, it will ask you to restart IDE, that is your integrated development environment. So it will restart Android Studio. I will click restart IDE. Yes, restart. And I will wait for the Android Studio to start again. Once the studio starts, you could see that the first option has changed to new Flutter project instead of new project. I will create the new Flutter project, click on that. And before I just go on, I have to select Flutter from the left and make sure the Flutter path is there. Obviously, we have never entered that path. Where did we extract Flutter? It was in C, src, Flutter. So I will go click on these three dots and look for C, src, Flutter. Don't go to the bin folder, just say Flutter here and click next. Once you click next, it is ready to create a new project for you. I will say, let's say my Flutter 1. This is where we're actually saving the project. This is in your Studio Projects folder. This is the description of the project. It is going to be an application. This is the reverse domain. Usually we use this as a unique string that is required for identifying your application on the Play Store. For example, if I go to Play Store and see one of the popular applications, for example, in Instagram, the application ID is com.instagram.android. Or if I check for, let's say, LinkedIn, the app ID is com.linkedin.android. Or if I check for, let's say, Messenger, it is com.facebook.orca. It is something that people are not really worried about as users, but you as a developer should choose something which is totally unique. So I will say Bassett.my first application in Flutter, and hopefully nobody else has made this kind of an ID. For Android, if we ever want to go for native, we will select Java and Swift. I want it to run on Android and iOS. I don't want it to run on Linux or web or Windows. I will click on create, and this will create a project for me. Hopefully this should work. So I will wait for a few moments and it will start Android Studio in a big window. It is creating things. It will ask you for the Windows security alert for adding it to the firewall. So I allow access to this project. Please be patient. Once it is creating the project, it will create a number of files. This is your project folder. We will talk about this in detail later on, but this progress bar at the bottom is actually showing you that it is still busy doing something. Once the progress bar finishes, you will see that main.dart is your main program. It is a sample program created for you by Android Studio and Flutter SDK. Last thing we need to do is actually start our emulator and start our application. We do not have a device running right now. I don't want to run my app on Windows or Chrome. So I will go to my device manager, and this is Google Pixel emulator, which is already created for me by Android Studio during the setup and installation. I can click on the play, start the device, or if you want to create a new device, click on the plus, select the device style you like. Maybe I can go for Pixel 6a, click next. Select the operating system, which version, Android Pie, Oreo, Nougat, S, upside down cake, and whatnot. These download icons are depicting that these OS images are not downloaded. In the x86 images, this upside down cake does not have this download icon. This means this was downloaded during our setup. I don't want to spend more time downloading the OS. So I will select this OS and click next. Other things like the device orientation or the graphics acceleration or the network speed, these are the kind of things that you could define here. I will leave them to default. I will change the name to my new phone and I click finish. Once I click finish, you will see that my new phone is here. I can play this phone. It will start an emulator window here and it will start showing up in this drop down. Once you select that device and click on this play icon, this should run the application in your emulator. We will run this application in the next video. So that's all for this one.